The morning air in Portland, Oregon, hung heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth and the sharp tang of Douglas fir needles, a fragrance that clung to the suburban streets like a promise of renewal. It was early June, the Willamette River, silver thread winding through the city, its gentle murmur blending with the rustle of leaves overhead. Ethan Harper, a wiry 10-year-old with freckles dusting his cheeks and a red hoodie slightly too big for his frame, pedaled his bike down Maple Street, the wheels humming against the damp pavement. His sneakers, scuffed from countless adventures, gripped the pedals as he navigated past neatly trimmed lawns and the occasional jogger, his breath puffing in the cool air. In his pocket, a crumpled sketchbook jostled with every turn, a treasure trove of drawings of dogs, birds, and the squirrels he'd watched from his bedroom window. Ethan loved animals. His mom always said it was his gift, a quiet connection that set him apart from the other kids who spent their days glued to screens. He'd begged for a dog since he could talk, his drawings a silent plea to a father who'd passed years ago, leaving behind memories of a golden retriever named Scout. Today, though, was different. The half-built house at the end of the block, a skeleton of beams and cinder blocks abandoned mid-construction, called to him with an unspoken mystery. The site was cordoned off with yellow tape, its edges flapping in the breeze, but Ethan's curiosity tugged harder than caution. He slowed his bike, the chain rattling as he coasted to a stop near a pile of debris. Shattered bricks, tangled wire, and a tarp sagging under last night's rain. The silence broke with a sound so faint it might have been the wind. A whimper, high and desperate, threading through the morning calm. Ethan's heart skipped, his hazel eyes scanning the site. He dropped his bike, letting it clatter against a post, and stepped closer, the wet grass soaking his socks. The whimper came again, sharper now from behind a crumbling cinderblock wall near the foundation. Peering through a gap, he froze. There, half entombed in gray cement, was a German shepherd, his black and tan fur matted with dust and damp, his head and front paws protruding like a statue unfinished by some cruel sculptor. The dog's amber eyes met Ethan's, wide with pain, and a flicker of hope, his breath shallow, his tongue lolling as he struggled to move. "Oh no," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling, barely audible over the distant hum of the river. He dropped to his knees, the cold ground seeping through his jeans, his hands hovering inches from the dog's muzzle. The shepherd, whom Ethan would later name Max, whimpered again, a sound that cut through the boy like a knife, stirring a mix of fear and determination. The cement encased Max's torso, his hind legs invisible, the wall's rough texture etched with cracks that suggested time. And weather had done this, not human hands. How long had he been there? Ethan's mind raced, picturing the dog trapped since the builders left, surviving on rainwater and sheer will. The air grew thick with the scent of wet concrete and the earthy musk of the firs lining the street, a contrast to the warmth of Max's labored breaths. Ethan's fingers brushed the cinder block, its cold surface grounding him as his heart pounded. He'd read about dogs in books from the library, how they communicated distress with whimpers, how their loyalty could defy odds. Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. But this was different. This was real. A living creature staring into his soul, asking for help he wasn't sure he could give. He thought of Scout, his dad's dog whose gentle eyes had comforted him after the funeral, and felt a surge of resolve. He couldn't leave Max here, not when those eyes held a plea he couldn't ignore. "Hold on," Ethan murmured, his voice cracking as he glanced around. The street was empty, the yellow tape a flimsy barrier between him and the dog. He pulled, his sketchbook from his pocket, flipping to a blank page, and tore off a corner, scribbling a note. "Dog stuck in wall. Help." He tucked it into his hoodie, planning to run home, but hesitated. Max's paw twitched, reaching toward him, the movement weak but deliberate, as if sensing the boy's intent. Ethan's breath hitched, tears prickling his eyes. He didn't know how to free Max, but he knew he had to try. The firs swayed, their needles whispering in the breeze, a sound that felt like encouragement from the Portland wilds he loved. Footsteps crunched behind him. Construction workers, their voices rising as they approached the site. Ethan's stomach dropped, his mind flashing to the trouble he might be in. but Max's whimper pulled him back. The dog's eyes locked on his again, a silent trust forming in that moment, a hook that caught Ethan's heart and wouldn't let go. This wasn't just a stray. This was a companion waiting to be saved, a story waiting to unfold. The workers' shouts grew louder, their silhouettes looming, but Ethan stayed, his small frame a shield between Max and the world, the first thread of a bond woven in the shadow of a crumbling wall. The scene held, the river's hum a distant heartbeat, the firs a cathedral of green, Portland's quiet beauty framing a moment of discovery that would ripple through the neighborhood. Ethan didn't know it yet, but this encounter would test his courage, unite a community, and leave tears in its wake. A tale born from a boy, a dog, and a wall that couldn't hold them apart. The morning light filtered weakly through the thick canopy of Douglas firs along Maple Street in Portland, Oregon, the air heavy with the damp musk of rain-soaked mud and the faint bite of freshly cut lumber. Ethan Harper knelt beside the cinder-block wall, his red hoodie streaked with dirt, his small hands trembling as they hovered over Max, the German shepherd trapped in the cement. The dog's amber eyes, wide with pain, locked onto Ethan's, his whimpers a fragile thread against the growing rumble of construction. Ethan's heart thudded, a mix of awe and fear swirling in his chest as he clutched the crumpled note he'd scribbled, "Dog stuck in wall, help," still tucked in his pocket, a plan half-formed to run home for aid. Footsteps crunched through the gravel, sharp and deliberate, shattering the quiet. Ethan's head snapped up as two construction workers, clad in reflective vests and hard hats, emerged from the half-built house's skeletal frame. Their boots sank into the mud, leaving deep prints, and the taller one, worker one, carried a sledgehammer slung over his shoulder, its weight a silent threat. The shorter worker two, with a radio crackling at his hip, squinted at Ethan, his face hardening. "Hey, kid," worker one barked, his voice cutting through the fur's rustle. "Get out of there, that's private property." Ethan froze, his knees sinking deeper into the wet earth, the cold seeping through his jeans. Max's whimpers turned into a low growl, a sound raw with stress, his trapped paws scrabbling feebly against the cinder block. The dog's fur, matted with dust and damp, trembled with each breath, his eyes darting between Ethan and the approaching men. Ethan's throat tightened, his mind racing. Max wasn't dangerous, he was scared, just like him. But the workers didn't see that. To them, this was a stray, a liability on a site they needed clear. I can't," Ethan stammered, his voice cracking as he stood, mud clinging to his sneakers. "He's stuck, we can't leave him." Worker two raised a hand, his radio squawking with static, and stepped closer, the scent of sweat and motor oil trailing him. "That's a stray, kid. Could be dangerous. Step back or we'll call the cops." His tone was firm, leaving no room for argument, his eyes narrowing as Max's growl deepened, a pitiful echo against the wall's unyielding surface. Ethan's stomach churned, his gaze dropping to Max, whose head drooped, exhaustion etching lines into his expression. The boy's fingers brushed the note in his pocket, his plan to fetch help now, a distant hope as the workers loomed. The construction site buzzed to life around them, the whine of a saw slicing through wood, the clatter of metal beams, the distant thud of a hammer, sounds that drowned Max's whimpers and tightened the knot in Ethan's chest. He thought of his mom, her gentle warnings about strangers, and his dad's old stories of Scout, the golden retriever who'd once saved a neighbor's cat. Could he save Max like that? Or would he fail, leaving the dog to a fate he couldn't bear? Worker one set the sledgehammer down, its head thudding into the mud, and pulled out a phone, dialing with a grunt. "Yeah, we got a kid and a dog issue here. Send someone quick." He eyed Max, his lip curling. "Might have to break the wall down. Can't risk it biting someone." The words hit Ethan like a punch, his vision blurring with tears. Break the wall? What if it hurt Max more? The dog's growl faded into a whine, his paws stilling, as if he sensed the threat, his trust in Ethan the only anchor in his terror. The air grew thicker, the river's hum a faint lifeline beyond the firs. its presence a reminder of Portland's wild heart now overshadowed by human haste. Ethan stepped forward, his small frame a barrier between Max and the workers, his sneakers slipping on the slick mud. "No, please," he pleaded, his voice rising, cracking with desperation. "He's not dangerous, he's scared. Look at him." His hands shook, but he held his ground, the note crumpling in his fist, a symbol of his resolve. Worker 2 sighed, rubbing his neck while Worker 1 pocketed his phone, muttering about delays. A crow landed on a nearby beam, its caw sharp and ominous, adding to the tension. Max's eyes met Ethan's again, a flicker of something, hope, maybe, passing between them, a silent plea that fueled the boy's courage. The workers debated, their voices a low rumble, one suggesting a backhoe, the other insisting on waiting for animal control. The sledgehammer lay in the mud, a looming threat, while the saw's whine grew louder, the site's chaos closing in. Ethan's mind raced, his fear warring with a stubborn determination he didn't know he had. He thought of the library books. How dogs like Max could growl when cornered. How their stress could turn to aggression if pushed, Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. But also how they sought help from humans they trusted. Max wasn't attacking. He was reaching out, and Ethan was his only hope. The furs swayed, their needles whispering in the breeze, a sound that felt like a call to action from the Portland wilds he loved. He couldn't run for help now, not with the workers so close, not with Max's life on the line. The tension coiled tighter as a truck rumbled into the site, its headlights cutting through the morning haze. More workers piled out, their voices overlapping, their tools clanking, the site transforming into a battlefield where Max's fate hung in the balance. Ethan's tears fell, mixing with the mud on his cheeks, his small hands clenching as he stood firm. The dog's whimpers grew fainter, his strength waning, but his eyes never left Ethan's, a bond forming under pressure, a peril that would test them both, setting the stage for a miracle no one could foresee. The morning air in Portland, Oregon hung damp and cool, the aftermath of a June rain clinging to the Douglas firs lining Maple Street, their needles glistening like emeralds under the pale sun. The construction site buzzed with a tense hum, saws, whining, metal clanging, as Ethan Harper stood his ground beside the cinder block wall, his red hoodie streaked with mud, his small frame trembling but resolute. Max, the German shepherd trapped in the cement, lay still, his amber eyes dulled with exhaustion, his whimpers fading into soft pants. The worker's truck idled nearby, its headlights casting long shadows, while Worker 1, sledgehammer in hand, and Worker 2, radio crackling, loomed closer, their faces set with impatience. Ethan's heart pounded, a frantic rhythm against his ribs as he faced the workers. Tears streaked his dirt-smudged cheeks, mixing with the rain's residue, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. The note he'd scribbled, "Dog stuck. In-wall help," crumbled in his pocket, a plan abandoned as the peril thickened. Max's growl had silenced, replaced by a weak twitch of his paw, a gesture that pierced Ethan's fear with a surge of empathy. He couldn't let them break the wall, not when it might crush Max further. The scent of wet concrete and fir sap filled his lungs, grounding him as he stepped forward, his sneakers sinking into the slick mud. "Please." Ethan's voice broke high and shaky, cutting through the construction noise. "He's not dangerous. Look at him. He needs help." His words trembled, but they carried a weight beyond his years, a plea born from the memory of his dad's golden retriever, Scout, whose gentle eyes had comforted him after the funeral. He dropped to his knees, ignoring the cold seeping through his jeans, and leaned closer to Max. The dog's eyes met his, a flicker of trust sparking through the pain, his tongue lolling as he struggled to lift his head. Worker 1 paused, the sledgehammer, hovering midair, his brow furrowing as he studied Max. The dog's fur, matted and damp, clung to his frame, his trapped state a stark contrast to the worker's hardened resolve. Worker 2 lowered his radio, the static fading, his gaze softening as Ethan's tears fell freely. The site's chaos, saws, hammers, the truck's rumble, seemed to hush, The furs rustle, a gentle counterpoint as if the Portland wilds held their breath. A soft meow broke the silence, drawing Ethan's attention. A stray cat, sleek and gray, padded from the shadows of the half-built house, its green eyes glinting in the light. The cat approached the wall, weaving between the cinder blocks, and settled near Max. Its purr a low vibration that seemed to calm the dog. Max's tail twitched, a faint wag that surprised Ethan, his whimpers easing as the cat rubbed against the cement. The workers exchanged glances, their stern expressions wavering, the cat's presence a subtle nudge toward compassion. "See?" Ethan pressed, his voice steadier now, pointing at the cat. "Even she knows he's not bad, he's just scared." His hands gestured toward Max, who lifted his paw slightly, as if reaching for the boy, a trust response that mirrored studies of canines seeking human aid in distress. Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. The cat meowed again, its tail flicking, a wild ally in this urban wilderness, its presence echoing Portland's reputation for embracing strays and nature. Worker 1 lowered the sledgehammer, its head thudding into the mud, a reluctant concession. "All right, kid," he muttered, rubbing his neck, his tone grudging. "We'll call animal control, but you stay back, don't want you hurt." His words carried a shift, a crack in the wall of their initial stance. The threat of demolition paused. Worker 2 nodded, raising his radio again, his voice quieter as he requested assistance, the static a faint backdrop to the cat's purr. Ethan's chest loosened, relief flooding him as he sat cross-legged, the mud soaking through his pants. He pulled a cracker from his pocket, a snack meant for the park squirrels, and held it out. Max's nose twitched, his tongue darting to lick it feebly, a small act of acceptance that warmed Ethan's heart. The cat nudged closer, its purr growing louder, a bridge between the boy and the dog. Ethan's tears slowed, his fear giving way to hope, his mind replaying his dad's stories of Scouts' rescues, a legacy fueling his resolve. The workers stepped back, their tools idle, the truck's engine cutting off as they waited. The furs swayed, their needles whispering in the breeze, a sound that felt like approval from the Portland landscape he loved. Ethan whispered to Max, "You're going to be okay." His voice a promise, the cat's presence a sign that help might come. The tension lingered, the site's machinery a looming shadow. But the shift had begun, a boy's plea, a dog's trust, and a cat's quiet intervention softening hearts in a moment that would ripple outward, setting the stage for a rescue no one could yet imagine. The river's hum drifted faintly, a lifeline beyond the firs, the morning light growing stronger, illuminating the scene with a fragile hope. Ethan stayed, his small frame a sentinel beside Max, the cat a guardian at the wall, the worker's hesitation a crack in the peril's grip. In Portland, where community and nature intertwined, this moment marked a turning point, a plea that would draw others into a story of compassion and courage. The late afternoon sun dipped low over Maple Street in Portland, Oregon, casting a golden sheen across the Douglas firs, their wet needles shimmering with the last of the June rain. The construction site, a chaotic patchwork of cinder blocks and beams, grew quieter as the workers' tools fell silent, their initial threat of demolition replaced by a hesitant pause. Ethan Harper sat cross-legged beside the wall, his red hoodie, dusted with mud, his small hands resting near Max, the German shepherd still trapped in the cement. Max's amber eyes, though weary, held a flicker of trust, his whimpers softened by the gray stray cat's purr, which vibrated gently against the cold blocks. The air carried the sharp scent of wet concrete, mingled with the earthy musk of the firs and the distant, refreshing breeze of the Willamette River. Ethan's heart, which had raced with fear moments ago, began to steady, his tears drying on his cheeks as hope took root. The workers, Worker 1 with his sledgehammer now propped against a beam, and Worker 2 with his radio silent, stood back, their faces etched with reluctant concern. The cat, sleek and alert, rubbed against Max's muzzle, its green eyes glinting in the fading light, a wild ally that had shifted the mood. Ethan clutched the crumpled note in his pocket, its purpose overtaken by the arrival of a white van marked Portland Animal Control, its tires crunching the gravel as it pulled up. Two officers stepped out, their uniforms crisp despite the dampness, carrying toolboxes and a stretcher. Officer 1, a woman with a kind face and a clipboard, approached Ethan, her boots squelching in the mud. Officer 2, a broad-shouldered man with a chisel in hand, surveyed the wall, his expression serious but not unkind. "Hey, you must be the one who called for help," Officer 1 said, her voice warm but firm. "What's going on here?" Ethan scrambled to his feet, his sneakers slipping slightly, and pointed at Max. "He's stuck. I found him this morning, and the workers wanted to break the wall, but he's not dangerous. He's just scared." His words tumbled out, a rush of relief and urgency, his hazel eyes pleading for understanding. Officer 2 knelt beside the wall, examining Max closely. The dog's fur was matted with dust and sweat, his front paws trembling as they pressed against the cinder block, but he didn't growl. The cat meowed softly, its purr a steady rhythm, and Max's tail gave a faint wag, a response to the officer's calm presence that mirrored studies of canines calming under human care. Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. Officer 2 nodded, pulling out a chisel and hammer. "He's been here a while. We'll need to chip away carefully, can't risk hurting him." Ethan's chest loosened, a wave of gratitude washing over him as he stepped closer, holding out the water bottle he'd kept in. His hoodie. "Can he have this?" he asked, his voice softer now, the fear giving way to a quiet determination. Officer 1 smiled, taking the bottle and tilting it so Max could lap at the water, his tongue darting weakly but eagerly. The cat watched, its tail flicking, a guardian in this fragile moment of rescue. The workers lingered, their tools idle, watching as the officers began their work. The clink of metal on cement echoed through the site, a tentative rhythm that replaced the earlier chaos of saws and hammers. Dust rose in small clouds, catching the sunlight, the scent of pulverized concrete mingling with the fur's earthy aroma. Ethan sat back down, the mud soaking through his pants, his eyes fixed on Max. The dog's breathing steadied, his whimpers fading as the officers chipped away at the outer layer, their movements precise, guided by the cat's quiet presence. "Officer," I glanced at Ethan, her clipboard resting on her knee. "You did the right thing, kid. Strays get trapped like this sometimes. Construction sites are risky. What's his name?" "Max," Ethan said without hesitation, the name feeling right as it left his lips. He thought of his dad's Scout, how naming him had sealed their bond, and felt a similar connection forming. The cat meowed again as if approving, its green eyes reflecting the golden light. Officer 2 chuckled softly, the sound breaking the tension further. "Looks like he's got a fan club already." The rescue was slow, the cement stubborn, but the shift was palpable. The workers muttered among themselves, their earlier hostility softening into curiosity. Worker 1 scratched his head, setting the sledgehammer aside for good. "Never seen a kid stick up for a dog like that," he admitted, his voice gruff but tinged with respect. Worker 2 nodded, adding, "Guess we'll wait it out. Animal control knows best." The site's machinery remained silent, the firs swaying in the breeze, their whisper a hymn to the Portland wilds that seemed to bless this effort. Ethan reached out, his fingers brushing Max's paw, the contact sending a shiver of warmth through him. Max's eyes met his again, a spark of trust growing stronger, his tail wagging more steadily now. The cat nudged closer, its purr a soothing counterpoint to the chisel's clinks, a trio of hope in the midst of the site's decay. Ethan's mind replayed the morning, Max's whimpers, the workers' threats, his own tears, and felt a pride he hadn't known before. He wasn't just a kid anymore. He was Max's advocate, a role that fit like the hoodie he wore. The rivers, hum drifted faintly, a lifeline beyond the firs, the afternoon light softening the scene. The officers worked methodically, their tools a bridge between danger and safety, the cat a silent guide. Ethan stayed, his small frame a constant beside. "Max, The workers shift from threat to support, a testament to the boy's plea. In Portland, where community and nature intertwined, this rescue marked a turning point, a hope that would draw others into a story of compassion, setting the stage for a miracle yet to come. The dusk sky over Portland, Oregon, deepened to a soft violet, the last rays of the June sun filtering through the Douglas firs along Maple Street, casting a golden glow across the construction site. The air was thick with the scent of settling cement dust, wet earth, and the faint, refreshing whisper of the Willamette River drifting from beyond the trees. Ethan Harper knelt beside the cinderblock wall, his red hoodie smudged with mud and dust, his small hands clasped tightly as he watched the animal control officers work. Max, the German shepherd trapped for hours, lay still, his black and tan fur matted and damp, his amber eyes fixed on Ethan with a trust that had grown through the day. The gray stray cat, its purr a constant thread, sat nearby, its green eyes reflecting the fading light, a silent guardian in this tense vigil. The officers, Officer 1 with her clipboard now set aside, and Officer 2 wielding a chisel, moved with careful precision, the clink of metal on cement a rhythmic heartbeat against the site's quieted hum. The workers, Worker 1 and Worker 2, stood back, their sledgehammer and tools abandoned, their faces softened by the scene unfolding. The truck's engine had long since cut off, the saws and hammers silenced, leaving only the firs rustle and the river's distant song. Ethan's chest tightened with anticipation. His tears from earlier dried into streaks on his cheeks, his mind replaying the morning's fear and the afternoon's hope. Max's whimpers, the cat's meow, his own plea that had sparked this rescue. Officer 2 struck the final cinder block, a sharp crack echoing as the last piece crumbled away. Dust billowed, catching the violet light, and Max's body shifted, his hind legs freed at last. The dog didn't bolt, didn't snarl. His movements were slow, deliberate, as if testing his newfound freedom. Ethan held his breath, his hands trembling, as Max turned his head fully toward him. The officers stepped back, their tools lowering, awe in their expressions as the moment stretched thick with possibility. The cat meowed softly, leaping onto the wall's edge, its tail flicking like a conductor's baton, guiding the scene to its climax. Max's amber eyes locked with Ethan's, a gaze so deep it felt like a window into the dog's soul. The boy's heart stuttered, a warmth spreading through him as Max's tail gave a tentative wag, then a stronger one, his strength returning with each breath. The dog shifted, his paws pressing into the mud, and leaned forward, his muzzle brushing Ethan's hand. A single gentle lick followed, a trust response that mirrored studies of canines bonding with rescuers post-trauma, Coppinger's dogs, 1001. But to Ethan it was more, a miracle, a recognition that transcended instinct. Tears welled in his eyes, spilling over as he whispered, "You're free. Because of us." The officers exchanged a glance, Officer 1's voice breaking the silence. "He's waiting for you, kid." Her words carried a reverence, the cat's purr amplifying the moment's sanctity. Ethan reached out, his fingers sinking into Max's, her feeling the warmth beneath the dirt, the steady beat of the dog's heart. Max pressed closer, his body trembling but upright, his eyes never leaving Ethan's. A mutual acknowledgement, a bond sealed in the dust and dusk. The workers murmured, Worker 1 nodding slowly, Worker 2 wiping his brow, their earlier threat forgotten in the face of this quiet triumph. The scene glowed with Portland's natural magic, the firs standing tall, the river's shimmer beyond. The cat, a mythic sentinel atop the wall. Ethan's mind flashed to his dad, to Scout, the golden retriever whose loyalty had been his childhood anchor. This felt like that, a legacy reborn, a connection that healed the boy's lingering grief. Max's lick had been a gift, a thank you, a promise, and Ethan felt it in his bones. The dog's tail wagged fully now, his strength returning, his presence a living testament to the power of care. The officers moved forward with the stretcher, but Max stayed by Ethan, his paws steady in the mud, the cat meowing as if blessing the union. Officer 2 chuckled, lowering the stretcher. "Looks like he's chosen his person." The workers joined, their hands helping to clear debris, a community effort sparked by a boy's courage. The dust settled, the violet sky deepening. The firs whisper a hymn to the wild heart of Portland that had witnessed this miracle. Ethan's tears fell freely, mixing with the mud on his face, his heart swelling with a joy he couldn't name. Max leaned into him, his weight a comfort, his eyes a mirror of the trust Ethan had given. The cat leapt down, rubbing against them, both its purr a final note in the symphony of liberation. The river's hum grew louder in Ethan's ears, a lifeline that tied this moment to the city's soul, where nature and community intertwined. This was more than a rescue. It was a meeting of spirits, a miracle that would ripple through the neighborhood, leaving tears of awe in its wake. The night unfurled over Maple Street in Portland, Oregon, the sky a deep indigo pierced by a crescent moon, its light spilling across the construction site like liquid silver. The air carried the cool, damp scent of Douglas firs, their needles glistening with the day's rain, mingled with the faint, earthy tang of the Willamette River drifting from beyond the trees. Ethan Harper stood beside the crumbled cinder-block wall, his red hoodie dusted with cement and mud, his small hands still trembling from the miracle of Max's liberation. The German shepherd, his black and tan fur matted, but his amber eyes bright, with newfound freedom pressed close to Ethan, his tail wagging steadily. The gray stray cat, its green eyes glowing in the moonlight, perched on the wall's edge, its purr a soft guide in the quiet. The animal control officers, Officer 1 with her clipboard tucked under her arm, and Officer 2 packing away his tools, lingered, nearby, their van's headlights casting long shadows. The workers, Worker 1 and Worker 2, had retreated to their truck, their earlier tension replaced by a grudging respect, the sledgehammer left abandoned in the mud. The site, once a battlefield of noise and threat, now hummed with a gentle peace, the firs rustle a lullaby to the day's drama. Ethan's heart swelled, the memory of Max's gaze, those eyes locking with his as the final block fell. Still, warm in his chest, a bond that felt like a gift from his dad, whose golden retriever Scout had once walked him home from school. Officer 1 approached, her voice gentle. "We'll take him to the shelter, check him over. You did good, Ethan. Want to come along?" Her offer was kind, but Ethan hesitated, his eyes on Max. The dog's tail slowed, his head tilting as if sensing the boy's uncertainty. The cat meowed softly, leaping down and padding toward the street, its tail flicking like a beacon. Max's ears perked and he took a tentative step, his limp less pronounced now, his gaze shifting between Ethan and the cat. "No," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "He's coming with me." He glanced at the officers, his freckled face set with determination. "Please? Just to my house?" Officer 2 chuckled, adjusting his tool bag. "Looks like he's chosen his person. We'll follow. Make sure he's safe." Ethan nodded, relief flooding him, and started walking, his sneakers crunching the gravel. Max fell into step beside him, his pace slow but sure, the cat leading the way with a graceful stride. The officers trailed with flashlights, their beams cutting through the misty night, illuminating the path toward Ethan's home a block away. The journey was quiet, the construction site fading behind them, replaced by the soft glow of streetlights and the occasional rustle of leaves. The air grew cooler, the river's hum a distant heartbeat, guiding them through Portland's suburban wildness. Ethan's mind raced, replaying the day, Max's whimpers, the workers' threats, the cat's intervention, the liberation's miracle. He glanced at Max, whose amber eyes reflected the moonlight, a trust that felt deeper than words. The cat paused at a corner, meowing softly, and Max stopped, nudging Ethan's leg with his muzzle. The boy knelt, his hand brushing Max's fur, feeling the warmth beneath the dirt. Max's tail wagged, and then with a gentle motion he dropped a small stick, chewed and weathered, likely scavenged from the site, onto the pavement at Ethan's feet. The gesture was deliberate, a gift mirroring studies of canines offering items to trusted humans, Coppinger's Dogs 2001. But to Ethan, it was a token of their bond, a release into this new chapter. Thanks, Max, Ethan whispered, picking up the stick, its rough texture grounding him. The cat meowed again, resuming its lead, and Max followed, his limp fading with each step. The officer's flashlights bobbed behind, Officer 1 murmuring into her radio, coordinating with the shelter. The streetlights cast a warm glow, the firs framing their path, their whisper a hymn to the Portland night that seemed to bless this escort. Ethan thought of his dad, of Scout's gentle guidance, and felt a connection, a legacy reborn in Max's, trust in the cat's quiet wisdom. They reached Ethan's porch, the house's windows glowing with a soft yellow light, his mom's silhouette visible through the curtains. Max sat, the stick now clutched in Ethan's hand, his tail wagging, as he looked up. The cat paused at the steps, its green eyes meeting Ethan's, then turned, vanishing into the shadows with a final meow. A release, a guardian returning to the wild. Officer 2 set down the stretcher, nodding. He's strong. We'll check him tomorrow, but he's yours for tonight. Ethan's mom, Mary, opened the door, her face lighting up with surprise and concern. Ethan, what? Oh. Her eyes fell on Max, then softened as she saw the officers. Is he okay? Officer 1 explained, her voice warm, while Ethan held the stick, his tears returning, not of fear, but of joy. Max leaned into him, his weight a comfort, the journey home a bridge from peril to safety. The night deepened, the river's hum a lullaby, the firs standing sentinel. The officers drove off, their van's taillights fading, leaving Ethan and Max on the porch. The cat's absence was felt, but its role lingered, a mythic thread in this tale. Ethan knelt, hugging Max, the stick a promise between them. In Portland, where nature and community intertwined, this journey marked a release. Not an end, but a beginning. A bond that would grow under the city's watchful trees. The morning light filtered through the curtains of Ethan Harper's bedroom in Portland, Oregon, a soft golden glow that danced across the wooden floor, carrying the crisp scent of Douglas firs from the backyard. It was the day after Max's rescue, the air inside still tinged with the faint aroma of pine cleaner and the earthy musk of wet dog, a new presence in the Harper home. Ethan, now 10 years old with freckles bright against his pale skin, sat cross-legged on his bed, his red hoodie swapped for a faded t-shirt, his sketchbook open on his lap. Beside him, Max, the German Shepherd, rested on a blanket spread across the floor, his black and tan fur brushed clean but still bearing faint traces of cement dust, his amber eyes half closed in a peaceful slumber. The house was quiet, the hum of the Willamette River a distant heartbeat beyond the firs, the neighborhood waking slowly on this early June morning. Ethan's mom, Mary, moved softly in the kitchen, the clink of a spoon against a bowl a gentle rhythm, preparing breakfast after a night of tending to Max with Ethan. The dog's limp had eased, his breathing steady, a testament to the officer's care and the rest he'd found under Ethan's watchful gaze. The stick Max had dropped during their journey home lay on the nightstand, its rough texture a tangible link to the bond they'd forged, a gift Ethan treasured like a relic. Ethan traced his pencil over a new sketch. Max's outline, his ears, perked, his eyes bright, his mind replaying the previous day. The whimpers from the wall, the workers' threats, the cat's meow, the liberation's miracle, all of it swirled in his thoughts. A story he couldn't yet fully grasp. He glanced at Max, whose tail gave a faint wag in his sleep, a sign of comfort that echoed studies of canines resting post-trauma to rebuild trust. Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. The boy's heart warmed, a quiet joy settling in as he recalled Max's click, that moment of recognition that had changed everything. Ethan? Mary's voice called softly from the doorway, her face gentle but tired. She held a bowl of oatmeal, steam rising in the cool air. He's doing better. The shelter called. His ribs are bruised but no breaks. They'll check him again tomorrow. She set the bowl on the nightstand, her eyes lingering on Max. You saved him, you know. Ethan nodded, his throat tight, tears prickling his eyes, not of sadness, but of pride. "He saved me too, Mom," he whispered, thinking of his dad, whose memory had guided him through the fear. Max's presence felt like a bridge to that lost time, to Scout, the golden retriever who'd once curled at his father's feet. He reached down, his fingers brushing Max's fur, feeling the steady rise and fall of the dog's chest. Max stirred, lifting his head, his amber eyes meeting Ethan's with a warmth that made the boy smile. The room filled with the scent of oatmeal and the pine drifting through the open window, the firs outside swaying in the morning breeze. Ethan fed Max a small bite, the dog's tongue gentle as he took it, a trust-building ritual that deepened their bond. The cat's absence was felt, a guardian who'd vanished into the night. But its role lingered, a mythic thread Ethan sketched into the corner of his page, its green eyes a symbol of hope. He wondered if it watched from the trees, its purr echoing in the distance. Mary sat on the bed's edge, her hand resting on Ethan's shoulder. "The neighbors are talking," she said, her voice warm, "about you and Max. They want to help, maybe build a dog run." The community's response, a Pacific Northwest trait of rallying for strays, filled Ethan with a quiet pride. He thought of the workers' shift, the officers' care, and felt part of something bigger, a healing that extended beyond him and Max. Max shifted, stretching his legs, his limp barely noticeable now. He nudged Ethan's hand, a silent request for more attention, and the boy obliged, stroking his ears. The dog's tail wagged stronger, a sign of recovery, his eyes bright with a gratitude Ethan mirrored. The morning stretched on, the river's hum a lullaby, the firs a green cathedral framing their sanctuary. Ethan sketched, capturing Max's rest, the stick, the memory of the cat, a record of their journey. In his mind, Ethan reflected on the bond. Was it real? Had Max truly trusted him, or had he imagined the depth of that gaze? The stick, the wag, the gentle nudge, all answered yes, a connection that healed the boy's lingering grief for his dad. He whispered, "You're home now." And Max's ears perked, his head resting against Ethan's leg, a mutual comfort in the quiet. The day passed in this rhythm, sketching, feeding, resting, Mary joining with stories of her own childhood pets, the house filling with laughter and warmth. The firs swayed, their whisper a blessing, the river a constant tying this healing to Portland's soul. Max's strength grew, his eyes clearer, his trust a living bond that would face new tests. In this aftermath, Ethan found peace, a boy, and his dog mending together, their story a quiet miracle taking root under the city's watchful trees. The afternoon sun broke through the clouds over Portland, Oregon, on this crisp June 13, 2025, casting dappled light across the Harper backyard, where the Douglas firs swayed gently, their scent mingling with the damp earth from the morning's rain. The air hummed with a deceptive calm, the Willamette River's distant murmur a faint counterpoint to the quiet that had settled since Max's rescue. Ethan Harper, now 10 years old with freckles bright on his cheeks, sat on the porch steps, his red hoodie pulled tight against the cool breeze, his sketchbook open to a drawing of Max. The German Shepherd lay beside him, his black and tan fur brushed clean, his amber eyes alert as he chewed on the stick from their journey home, a symbol of their bond. The peace shattered with a low rumble, the ground vibrating as a construction crew rolled into the neighboring lot. Ethan's head snapped up, his pencil pausing mid-stroke as the noise grew. Truck engines growling, metal clanking, the whine of a bulldozer's blade cutting through the firs rustle. Max's ears perked, his body tensing, a low growl rumbling in his throat, a protective response to the intrusion that mirrored studies of canines guarding their territory. Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. Ethan's stomach tightened, his mind flashing to the site where he'd found Max, the workers' earlier threats echoing in his memory. A foreman, broad-shouldered with a clipboard tucked under his arm, stepped from the truck, his boots crunching, the gravel as he surveyed the area. His crew followed, unloading machinery, their voices overlapping with orders. The bulldozer's blade gleamed, its shadow falling across the Harper yard, where a low fence marked the boundary. Ethan stood, Max rising beside him, his growl deepening as the foreman approached, his face set with purpose. "Hey, kid," the foreman called, his voice cutting through the machinery's din. "New project. Might need your yard. Expansion. Plans. That dog's gotta go if he's a stray." His words landed like a blow, his clipboard gesturing toward Max, who bared his teeth, his hackles rising. The crew's noise intensified, hammers pounding, saws screaming, disrupting the backyard sanctuary, the fur's whisper drowned by the threat. Ethan's heart raced, his hands clenching into fists, the sketchbook slipping to the steps. "He's not a stray," he shouted, stepping in front of Max, his small frame a shield. "He's mine, you can't take him." His voice cracked, tears prickling his eyes, but his resolve hardened, fueled by the memory of Max's liberation, the trust in those amber eyes. The stick lay abandoned, a silent witness to the bond now under siege. The foreman frowned, adjusting his hard hat. "Rules are rules, kid. Unregistered dogs on construction sites are a liability. We'll call animal control if we have to." He turned to his crew, signaling the bulldozer forward, its blade inching closer to the fence. Max's growl turned into a bark, sharp and fierce, his body trembling with protective instinct. Ethan's mind raced. Animal control had cleared Max, but this new crew didn't know, didn't care. The backyard, their healing space, was slipping away, the fur's sway a desperate plea against the encroaching steel. The air grew thick with the stench of diesel and freshly turned soil, the river's hum lost beneath the machinery's roar. Ethan thought of his dad of Scout, whose loyalty had once defended their home, and felt a surge of courage. He knelt, his hand on Max's head, calming the dog's barks to a low rumble. "It's okay, Max," he whispered, his voice steadying. "We'll figure this out." The cat's absence stung. Its green eyes and purr would have bolstered him, but the memory of its guidance lingered, a mythic thread urging him to fight. The bulldozer paused, the foreman raising a hand as a crew member whispered something, pointing at Ethan. The boy seized the moment, stepping forward. "I saved him. He was stuck in your wall, and now you want to take him away?" His words trembled but carried a weight, his freckled face set with defiance. The crew hesitated, their movements slowing, the machinery's noise softening as they watched. Worker 1 from the original site emerged from the truck, his face lighting with recognition. "That's the kid from the other day," he said, nudging the foreman. "He's the one who got that dog out. Maybe we should hold off." The foreman scowled but nodded, lowering his clipboard. The tension coiled tighter. The bulldozer's blade still too close, Max's growls a constant undercurrent, his loyalty to Ethan clear. Ethan's chest heaved, his tears falling as he stood firm, Max at his side. The firs rustled, their whisper a call to protect what they'd built, the river's hum a faint lifeline. The threat loomed, construction, displacement, loss. But Ethan's resolve grew, a boy and his dog facing a new peril. In Portland, where community and nature intertwined, this tension would test their bond, setting the stage for a rallying cry that would echo through the neighborhood. The evening settled over Portland, Oregon, on this June 13, 2025. The sky, canvas of gray streaked with the last amber hues of sunset, the air cool and damp from a recent drizzle. The Douglas firs lining the streets cast long shadows across the community center, their scent mingling with the rich aroma of coffee wafting from inside. Ethan Harper, now 10 years old with freckles glowing under the porch lights, stood at the entrance, his red hoodie zipped against the chill, his hands clutching the stick Max had given him. Beside him, Max, the German shepherd, sat calmly, his black and tan fur brushed and his amber eyes scanning the gathering crowd, a quiet strength in his presence that eased the tension of the afternoon's threat. The center buzzed with life, neighbors streaming in with mugs and murmured conversations, their faces lit by the warm glow of the hall. Posters plastered on the walls read, "Save our neighborhood and protect Max," a testament to the word that had spread since the construction crew's intrusion. The air hummed with the soft clink of cups and the rustle of coats, the Willamette River's distant murmur a faint heartbeat beyond the firs. Ethan's heart raced, a mix of nerves and pride swelling in his chest as he thought of the bulldozer's blade, the foreman's words, and his own stand to protect Max. This rally was his idea, born from a boy's courage and a dog's trust, now igniting a community. Mary, Ethan's mom, guided him inside, her hand on his shoulder, her eyes warm with encouragement. "You've got this," she whispered, leading him to a small stage where a microphone waited. Max followed, his tail wagging gently, his calmness in this social setting mirroring studies of canines adapting to human gatherings with trusted companions. Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. The room quieted as Ethan stepped up, the stick in one hand, his sketchbook in the other, a symbol of the journey that had brought them here. "Hi, everyone," Ethan began, his voice shaky but clear, echoing through the hall. "I'm Ethan, and this is Max. I found him stuck in a wall at the construction site, and I couldn't leave him." His eyes met Max's, the dog's gaze, steady, a silent support that bolstered him. "They wanted to break the wall, then take our yard, take him away. But he's not just a dog, he's my friend. And this is our home." A murmur rippled through the crowd, heads nodding, faces softening. A vet, Dr. Larson, stepped forward, her white coat crisp, her voice firm. "I examined Max yesterday. He's recovering well, but his story's a reminder of what we risk losing. Our green spaces, our pets. We need to fight this expansion." Her words carried weight, the room buzzing with agreement, the coffee aroma blending with the fur scent drifting through an open window. Neighbors shared stories. Mrs. Patel about her cat rescued from a storm. Drain, Mr. Nguyen about the trees felled for the new project, each tale weaving a tapestry of care. Ethan held up his sketchbook, flipping to a drawing of Max trapped, then free, his voice gaining strength. "Max trusted me when no one else did. We can trust each other to save our neighborhood." Max leaned against his leg, his tail wagging, a living testament to the boy's words. Applause erupted, the sound warm and resonant, the fur shadows dancing on the walls. A community leader, Mr. Hayes, stood, his gray hair catching the light. "We'll petition the city, organize a watch. Ethan, you've started something big." The room filled with plans, sign-ups for patrols, calls to council members, movement sparked by a 10-year-old's heart. The cat's absence was felt, its green eyes a memory that lingered, a mythic guide whose role had set this rally in motion. Ethan's chest swelled, tears prickling his eyes, not of fear, but of pride. He thought of his dad, of Scout, whose loyalty had once rallied neighbors for a block party, and felt that legacy in his leadership. Max's presence, calm and proud, reinforced it, the dog's trust a beacon for the crowd. The hall grew lively, voices overlapping with hope, the coffee cups clinking as hands reached to pat Max, who accepted each touch with a gentle nudge. Outside, the firs rustled, their whisper a blessing, the river's hum a call to unity. The threat of the bulldozer faded under this collective resolve, the community's spirit, a Pacific Northwest trait of standing for nature and each other, shining through. Ethan stepped down, Max at his side, the stick a talisman in his hand. The rally marked a turning point, an impact that would ripple beyond the center, setting the stage for a miracle yet to unfold, a boy and his dog at the heart of a neighborhood reborn. The dawn light crept over Portland, Oregon on this Friday, June 13, 2025, at 8:02 a.m. PKT, bathing the Harper backyard in a soft golden hue, the first rays filtering through the Douglas firs to dance on the dew-kissed grass. The air was crisp, carrying the sharp scent of pine and the earthy dampness of the morning, the Willamette River's gentle hum a distant heartbeat beyond the trees. Ethan Harper, now 10 years old with freckles glowing in the light, stood on the porch, his red hoodie unzipped, his hands clutching the stick Max had given him. Beside him, Max, the German shepherd, sat alert, his black and tan fur gleaming after a night's rest, his amber eyes scanning the yard with a quiet vigilance. The backyard, their sanctuary since Max's rescue, buzzed with a subtle energy. The fur swaying in the early breeze, their whisper a hymn to the wild heart of Portland. The community rally had bolstered Ethan's spirit, the neighbors' support a shield against the construction threat. But the absence of the gray stray cat, a guardian since the wall, had left a quiet ache. Ethan's sketchbook, filled with drawings of Max and the cat, rested on the steps, a testament to the bond that had grown. He thought of his dad, of Scout, whose spirit seemed to linger in these moments, guiding him through the fear and triumph. A soft rustle broke the silence, drawing Ethan's gaze to the fir's edge. The gray cat emerged, its sleek form gliding through the shadows, its green eyes catching the dawn light like emeralds. Max's ears perked, his tail wagging gently, a recognition that echoed studies of canines responding to familiar cues. Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. The cat padded forward, stopping at Ethan's feet, and with a deliberate motion, dropped a small pine cone, its scales tight, its scent sharp, onto the porch. The gesture mirrored the stick, a gift that sent a shiver of awe through Ethan, a second miracle unfolding in the quiet morning. Ethan knelt, his fingers brushing the pine cone, its texture rough yet warm from the cat's hold. "You brought him back for me," he whispered, tears welling in his eyes, not of sorrow but of wonder. The cat meowed softly, its purr vibrating through the wood, a sound that seemed to weave the past, Max's liberation, the rally, into this present promise. Max nudged Ethan's hand, his muzzle brushing the pine cone, his tail wagging stronger, a shared recognition that bound them tighter. The firs rustled louder, their whisper a blessing, the river's hum a witness to this reunion. The backyard glowed with Portland's natural magic, the dew sparkling, the firs standing tall, the cat a mythic figure in this sacred space. Ethan's mind flashed to his dad, to Scout's gentle guidance, and felt that legacy in this moment. A promise kept by the wild, a circle completed. He placed the pine cone beside the stick, a pair of tokens that anchored his heart. Max leaned into him, his weight a comfort, his eyes reflecting the dawn, a trust that had grown through peril and community. Mary appeared at the door, her face lighting with surprise. "Ethan, is that?" She stepped out, her slippers soft on the wood, and smiled as the cat rubbed against her leg. "Looks like our friend's back." Her voice carried a warmth, a mother's pride in her son's connection to nature. The neighbors' voices drifted from nearby yards, their morning routines a sign of the rally's lingering impact, the community united by Ethan's stand. The cat sat, its green eyes fixed on Ethan and Max, its purr a steady thread. Ethan reached out, his hand hovering, and the cat nudged it, a silent acceptance. Max barked softly, a joyful sound, his alertness giving way to playfulness as he pawed at the pine cone. The scene stretched, a second miracle of trust and reunion, the backyard a sanctuary where the wild and human met. Ethan's tears fell, mixing with the dew on his cheeks, his heart swelling with a gratitude he couldn't name. The morning deepened, the firs whisper a lullaby, the river a constant, tying this promise to Portland's soul. The cat's return, the pine cone's gift, Max's joy, all wove a tapestry of hope, a bond that would face its final test. Ethan stood, Max at his side, the stick and pine cone in hand, the cat a guardian once more. In this moment, where nature and community intertwined, the promise was clear: a boy, a dog, and a cat, their story a light that would shine through the challenges ahead. The morning mist draped Maple Street in Portland, Oregon, on this Friday, June 13th, 2025, at 08:03 a.m. PKT, a soft veil that softened the golden light filtering through the Douglas firs. The air was cool and fragrant, heavy with the scent of pine and the damp earth of the Harper backyard, the Willamette River's gentle hum threading through the stillness. Ethan Harper, now 10 years old with freckles aglow in the dawn, stood on the porch, his red hoodie zipped against the chill, his hands clutching the stick and pine cone, tokens of his bond with Max. Beside him, Max, the German shepherd, sat tall, his black and tan fur sleek from Mary's care, his amber eyes bright with a wild energy. The gray stray cat, its green eyes piercing the mist, perched nearby, its purr a quiet pulse in the morning. The backyard, their sanctuary since Max's rescue, felt different today, a threshold to something new. The community rally had strengthened, their resolve, the neighbors' support a shield against the construction threat. And the cat's return with the pine cone had sealed a promise. Ethan's heart beat with a mix of joy and sorrow, knowing this moment would test the bond he'd built. He thought of his dad, of Scout, whose freedom in the park had been a lesson in love, and felt that legacy guiding him now. The firs rustled, their whisper a call to the wild, the river a lifeline urging release. "Let's go to the park," Ethan said softly, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. Max's tail wagged, his ears perking, and the cat meowed, leaping down to lead the way. Ethan started walking, the stick and pine cone in his pocket, Max at his side with a steady gait, the cat gliding ahead. Neighbors emerged from their homes, Mrs. Patel with a smile, Mr. Nguyen with a wave, their presence a community escort, their voices low with support. The mist parted, the firs framing their path, the morning light growing as they moved toward the nearby park. The journey was quiet, the crunch of gravel under Ethan's sneakers mingling with the soft pad of Max's paws, the cat's tail a beacon in the fog. The air grew fresher, the river's hum louder, the park's open space emerging, a haven of green with towering trees and a winding path. Ethan's chest tightened, his mind replaying Max's liberation, the rally, the pinecone's gift, each memory a thread in their story. Max stayed close, his amber eyes glancing up, a trust that made the release bittersweet. They reached a clearing, the mist thinning to reveal the park's beauty, fir shadows stretching across the grass, the river glinting beyond. The cat paused, mowing softly, and Max stopped, his tail wagging as he surveyed the space. Neighbors gathered, their murmurs a warm hum, Dr. Larson and Mr. Hayes among them, their faces reflecting the community's care. Ethan knelt, his hand on Max's head, feeling the dog's warmth. "You're free now, Max," he whispered, tears prickling his eyes. "But you'll always be my friend." Max nuzzled Ethan's hand, then stepped back, his movements deliberate. He lowered his head, picking up a small leaf from the ground, green and veined, a gift mirroring studies of canines offering items to signify trust or farewell. Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. He dropped it at Ethan's feet, his tail wagging once, more a final token of their bond. The cat meowed, rubbing against the leaf, then turned toward the trees, its green eyes a silent invitation. Max barked softly, a joyful sound, and followed, his limp gone, his stride strong. Ethan's tears fell, mixing with the dew on his cheeks, his heart aching but full. The neighbors cheered, their voices rising. "Go, Max! Safe travels!" A community blessing that echoed through the park. The cat led Max into the firs, their forms fading into the mist, the leaf a symbol of release. Ethan picked it up, holding it with the stick and pine cone, a trio of memories that anchored him. He thought of his dad, of Scout's freedom, and felt a peace. Max's choice honored that legacy, a wild spirit returning to the wild. The morning deepened, the firs whisper a farewell, the river a constant, tying this release to Portland's soul. The neighbors approached, patting Ethan's shoulder, their support a comfort. Dr. Larson smiled. "He's healed thanks to you. He'll thrive out there." Mr. Hayes nodded. "We'll keep watch, Ethan. You've given us all something to fight for." The park glowed with nature's grace, the mist lifting, the community united by this act of love. Ethan stood, the leaf, stick, and pine cone in hand. The cat and Max now shadows in the trees. The release was bittersweet. A goodbye. That wasn't an end, but a continuation. Their bond etched in the wild. In Portland, where nature and community intertwined, this moment marked a freedom earned, setting the stage for a legacy that would endure. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of Ethan Harper's classroom in Portland, Oregon, on this Friday, June 13, 2025, at 08:05 a.m. PKT, casting a warm glow across the wooden desks and the colorful posters lining the walls. The air carried the faint scent of chalk dust and the crisp aroma of Douglas firs visible beyond the glass, their branches swaying in the gentle breeze. The Willamette River's distant murmur threaded through the open window, a constant heartbeat tying the room to the city's wild heart. Ethan, now 10 years old with freckles bright against his skin, stood at the front, his red hoodie swapped for a school uniform, his hands clutching the stick, pine cone, and leaf, tokens of his journey with Max. The classroom buzzed with quiet anticipation. His classmates' eyes fixed on him, their faces a mix of curiosity and respect. Max, the German shepherd who had been freed from the cinder block wall, was gone, released into the park's wild embrace that morning. But his presence lingered in Ethan's heart and the objects he held. The room felt alive with the memory of the rescue, the rally, the cat's gifts, each moment a thread in a story Ethan was now ready to share. His mom, Mary, had encouraged him to speak. Her pride, a quiet strength, and the neighbors' support had bolstered his courage. He thought of his dad, of Scout, whose gentle lessons had guided him through fear to this moment, a legacy he now carried forward. "Hi, everyone," Ethan began, his voice steady but soft, echoing in the room. "This is about Max, the dog I found stuck in a wall. He was scared and no one wanted to help until I did." He held up the stick, its rough texture a tangible link to that first bond. "He gave me this when I brought him home like a thank you." The class leaned in, their whispers fading, the furs rustle a backdrop to his tale. Ethan continued, flipping open his sketchbook to show drawings, Max trapped, free, with the cat, in the park. "The workers wanted to hurt him, but I stood up. The neighbors helped, and the cat, it brought us a pine cone, like a promise." He raised the pine cone, its scales glinting in the light, then the leaf. "This morning, Max gave me this before. He went back to the wild. He chose freedom, but he trusted me first." His voice trembled, tears prickling his eyes, but he smiled, a wisdom beyond his years shining through. A classmate, Lila, raised her hand, her voice curious. "Why'd he leave?" Ethan paused, his gaze drifting to the window, the firs a green, cathedral. "Because he's wild at heart," he said, "but he taught me kindness speaks louder than fear. It's how we save each other." The room fell silent, the lesson sinking in, mirroring studies of canines influencing human empathy through trust. Coppinger's Dogs, 2001. The teacher, M.S. Carter, nodded, her eyes warm, encouraging the class to reflect. The students shared their own stories, a lost bird, a stray cat, each tale weaving a tapestry of care inspired by Ethan's. He set the tokens on the desk, their presence a shrine to Max, the cat, and the community. The air grew thick with the scent of learning and hope. The firs whisper a hymn to the Portland wilds that had shaped this legacy. A distant bark floated through the window, faint but clear. Max's, a natural echo that sent a shiver through. Ethan, a mythic hint of the dog's enduring spirit. Ms. Carter stepped forward, her voice gentle. "Ethan, you've shown us what kindness can do. Maybe we can start a club to help animals, like Max." The class clapped, their hands a warm rhythm, the idea taking root. Ethan's chest swelled, pride mixing with the ache of Max's absence. He thought of his dad, of Scout's bark in the park, and felt that legacy in his voice, in the room's unity. The bell rang, but the lesson lingered, the firs' shadows stretching across the desks. The neighbors' petition had paused the construction, the community watch growing, all sparked by a boy and his dog. Ethan gathered his tokens, the bark echoing again, a promise that Max thrived. In his mind, he saw the cat's green eyes, the park's mist, the bond that had changed him. The classroom emptied, but the legacy remained, a story of kindness that would echo through Portland, a moral for all. The afternoon deepened, the river's hum a constant, the firs a witness. Ethan walked home, the stick, pine cone, and leaf in his pocket, his heart full. In Portland, where nature and community intertwined, this legacy of kindness lived on, a boy's courage a beacon for the future.